All right, all right, all right, all right. Hello, everybody. Let me go ahead and hop on the stream here, see if I can hear myself clearly. Everybody, go ahead and hop on. Okay, looks like I can. Excellent. It is a little bit of some jumpiness sometimes uh, with the sound, but we'll work through it, huh? Okay. So I put out a toot saying that I'm streaming talking about Anarchy Realms. The stream name is saying that I'm talking about Anarchy Realms. I set myself here to just chatting, and we're going to be looking at the anarchyrealms.com webpage, which is up. You guys can go and look at it yourself. The beginning of chapter one, which is pretty much a basic overview of what the core of the game is up there. Some details, of course, are not on there yet, but the main what you're going to be doing to resolve uh, a lot of I noticed that a lot of games end up going into a 2d6 or some d6 or higher system, and it's just like across the board. Like the people who like 2d6 systems love 2d6 systems, right? And that's going to be your Powered by the Apocalypse, your Blades in the Dark, your um, oh, what was the other one that was kind of new that I saw? Oh my goodness. Uh, Somebody was just talking about it. It's like core or something. There's just like a lot of there's just like a lot of systems out there, right? And people are just kind of like really wanting to they like the 2d6 system because it's less math, right? That's the whole point, right? Less math for the 2d6 system. That's the people who want a 2d6 system want a 2d6 system. And then I always laugh because they're like, oh, here's this 2d6 system, you can convert it, do this, and then it becomes it becomes a d20 system, and they're like, you're ruining it with math. Um, but that's not the only like real difference. Is whether the between the 2d6 system and the d20 systems, because it's not that d20 systems are more complicated per se. They do have a lot of complications kind of built in. There's a lot more structure, a lot more rules that people tend to go like, yeah, no, somebody's already figured this out. Just go with what's written down instead of having to be like, well, I as a GM in this game in this particular instance is going to rule this way, and then later on, I as a GM in this case will rule it this way. And then I, as a different GM in that first situation, is going to rule it this way, and that's different from the last time you got a ruling, and so you can never expect the same results. So you can't go like, hey, I know how to play a certain kind of way, and I want to solve my problems this way, so I'm going to do this, and it doesn't work that way, and it it really is an interesting kind of thing because it's like you never get the same answer unless you're playing with the same GM, right? You never get the same answers. Um, I no, I need to. I'm gonna do something real quick. I hold on. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Am I here? Okay. Good. All right. Okay. So yeah. So it's not just about the kind of like the difficulty or the complexity of having like a system. It's not like it's like, oh, D20 here, 2D6 here, and 2D6. By the way, that's generified. That's like the 2D12 systems, multiple dice systems, um, and so there's a certain thing about them where it's sort of like all you have to do is roll past a certain number and you succeed. It doesn't matter what that number is; it stays static. And your your base or your conditions and stuff change how easy it is for you to hit that success rate, but the randomness is always the same, right? And so you have this thing where you're constantly at that same percentage. With a lot of 2d6s, it's like beating like 7 or 6 or something. And they do have kind of like a, you beat this minimum, and then if you get like 10 or higher, you get like improved things. But um, they don't have necessarily a losing scale. They don't go down in losing. D20 systems don't go down in losing usually either. By the way, um, they don't usually have a fail and a crit fail difference. Once you failed, you failed. A crit fail just guarantees the failure. Whereas once you succeed in a crit success. Sometimes that's something better, but it's not always. Depending on the system, of course. And I've been going through that, and some 2d6 systems do better scaling, and some d20 systems do better scaling in other ways. But that's something that's really been moving forward. The issue with scaling results is that you have to add a lot more variables to everything, and you have to do extra work. And if you're creating something as a third party creator, you have to take extra steps. You have to go, it's like, oh yeah, this is that. Um, and sorry, going back to the success thing with the percentage chance with the 2d6 systems is that you know where your success is. You know it's 7 higher or higher. So if you ever get a +5, which I don't think you can, I think the most you can ever get is like usually they cap it at +4 if it's a 7+ system. So then that way your lowest number will still fail. Like that's like if you roll 2 1s, you still fail even with a +4. You succeed every other time, and then you get improved successes after that. But for the most part, um, being a um, the 2d6 system, you're going to kind of like have that kind of like ratio, and a lot of times they do other things like to simplify. It's usually to simplify. They're like all of these things are too complicated. We want to focus on the role play part of it, and we don't necessarily want to roll for everything, and not everything should be rolled for. Um, but with combat in those systems, I feel terrible doing combat in those systems. I am always at a near panic because there's no concepting. There's no you don't feel like you have agency in combat in those systems. And when it comes to fighting for myself, that's the thing that I want the most agency in. That's the part that I don't have agency in real life. So I don't know. I don't that I think maybe that's why I prefer kind of like what the D20 systems do and how they focus on things. Now, percentage chance wise, D20 systems they kind of always aim for a 50%, and what they do is they start you off. They start you off. If everything was bare bones and minimized, you would be at I think by default um, you would have like almost a 50% chance. If you just look at like fifth edition, for example, armor class is 10 with no dexterity. Your chance to hit with no dexterity actually is die roll +2 at level 1 with the proficiency bonus, which means that you're really looking at a range of 3 to 22, which shifts your average up above 11, which means that you have, yeah, that pushes you to like 65% chance to hit a DC 10 check, um, which is kind of going to be like that. That's going to be what your average thing is. Like your average monster is going to have that kind of like armor class difficulty for you. Um, and a monster that's easier, or a task that's easier is going to move down to the 5 range of success, where you're with the +2, you're at, unless you roll a 1 um, with an attack roll, you can roll a 1 on a skill check. So let's say even with a 1, you'd be looking at a 3. So a 15% fail rate. So 85% chance of success. On easy tasks, about 65 on a medium task. And you're probably looking at like a 35% success rate on something that's hard. And that's going to be how D&D kind of like operates. And I don't know the math on Pathfinder 2e. I haven't played it yet. I've looked at the books. I've been looking at Pathfinder 2e for a bit. But I haven't played it at all. It's awkward because like the people who in my community that play Pathfinder 2e are not very social. So when I try to talk to them, I just kind of like feel like I'm getting pushed away. Um, but they also have like full tables, so I don't know if they even. I don't think they're trying to make room for people to join. To be 100% honest with you, so it becomes one of those things where, if I want to run Pathfinder 2e, I have to run it myself. Um, which I'm thinking of doing just to like run a few sessions, just to kind of like get an idea for it. But aside from that, there's quite a few things in it that didn't quite click with me as I was reading, as I was looking at it. And I mean, there's a lot that does. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot that does. They have a lot of good work in that system. Um, but it keeps feeling like I have to get. No, that's not true. It keeps feeling like no matter what I do to try and understand the system, by the time I think of something that I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this here, it's like, oh no, it exists. It's over here, and I look at it, I'm like, well, that's terrible. I don't like any of that. But also, it's like the number of steps you have to follow to make something in Pathfinder, because it's like, it's like, oh, I'm gonna make what do they call it, an ancestry with a heritage or something, an ancestry or a heritage. I'm gonna do that, and then you blink and it's like, oh yeah, I need to make like 15 feats for it, and I don't know if the person's gonna who picks it is gonna pick these specific feats or not. So it's like I don't know if they're going to be playing it this way or not. It feels very out of control, to be honest with you. Um, Nothing against feats. It's just that the base level stuff is also feats. So it, it I don't know. It at least that's how it feels outside looking in. It it feels noisy. Yeah, that's the word. It feels noisy. It's like looking at a static, um, not like a still screen, but like screen filled with static noise. Um, it's just like all over, and it's like it's very difficult to parse. I had a similar feeling when I was trying to look at the playtest materials for Daggerheart, because I didn't have things printed out and in cards. Trying to get the information was like, okay, I opened it. I look over here. Oh, wait, oh no, wait, and then by the time I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not gonna even try and play test this. I'm not gonna try and run this. I'm not gonna try and have my players go through this because I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble looking at it because it's not designed to be read off of a book. It's designed to be looked at, yeah, as cards, as things that and not having it that way, it makes it so painful to parse. Makes it so painful to understand, and then um, it's sort of like, oh, we got to give you all of these. No, no, no. I need like better sorting. I need better something. I don't know. Um, I need a lot of improvements in it, and it's not there. It's not. It's not at a point where it's friendly to my brain. So, you know, kudos to them though, because it looks like a lot of people are loving it, and the base kind of concepting is easy to understand. The 2D12, hope and fear and whatever, like all that stuff is good. That's good stuff. Um, I'm not crapping on that design part of it, but the um, getting the information to me was very difficult, and I feel that way when trying to parse through um, Pathfinder to try and figure out what I want to do or what I want to play as. Um, Everything feels very, very deep, very complicated. And it's not, and for some reason, fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons doesn't feel that way to me. Um, and that's another D20 system, right? Um, it is, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. The D20 part of it is that when you when you pick a race, as it was originally, or when you pick a species as it is now in fifth edition, um, you you get you just get it, right? Like this is what you get. It's bam, bam, bam. That's it. You walk away. That's it. I got it. This is what I'm gonna get out of it. And then when you go to pick a class, you just go bam, bam, bam. This is what you get. They have a list of things, like you make some choices on equipment, but you just you get. You don't have to make choices. You already made the choice, right? I already made the choice at first level. After first level, after first level, please give me more choices. But at first level, just just give me the thing. I shouldn't have to be going like, okay, at first level, am I this or this? This is where like warlocks kind of become an issue, or where rangers become an issue, where you have to make a lot of very complicated, future-sighted decisions, and then you don't get to go back necessarily. So it's like, which is why I think like a lot of people goes like, yeah, don't pick necessarily some of these classes as your first class. Go into it later. Sorcerer is another one. Clerics, as well. Wizards, like if you're gonna be a cat, like if you're starting out, I always say, okay, choose like fighter, rogue, or wizard. Those are the easiest classes to get started in. Going sorcerer is way harder than going wizard. Going warlock is way harder than going wizard as a beginner. As a beginner, as somebody just having no no start with fifth edition. Um, so yeah, and that's been my whole kind of like spiel about it, is the complexities between the two. So with that in mind, um, when I do Anarchy Realms, right? I was like, okay, I which end of that spectrum do I want to be on? Which one is going to be more comfortable for me? And I decided on sticking with D20. And so if you are a 2D6 girly, I understand. I I am there for you. I support you. I look at your games all the time. A lot of them have things where they just say, "Hey, write down um, a skill you have," and I'm like, "What do you mean write down? Where's the skill list?" And it's like, "No, no, no. Just write down that you have a skill." Like, what does that mean? What is the definition? They're like, it can be anything you want, and it's like, what? Uh, uh um, okay, I have godhood. It's like, no, 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 not that. It's like, then define it better. Damn it. Give me a better definition than you just write something down. Write a skill or experience you had. I used to be a god. Is that it? Can I have that as an experience? Can I do that? I am the goddess Pangoria after all. Um okay. So with that in mind, let's go take a quick look through here. There we go. Um this is Anarchy Realms. This is my website. So as you scroll down, it's like join the Anarchy Realms community. Sends you to my coffee page. That would be great if people do. I just wanted to kind of start here because this is kind of like the mission statement of Anarchy Realms um, and what it means. Let me zoom in just a little bit. One, two. Let me see how that looks for you guys. That's better. That's better. Okay, so Anarchy Realms mission to change TTRPGs to include more movement and dynamic cinematic moments in combat and social events. And I think it's interesting because MCDMs and DC20 are and a lot of other ones. They're all really trying to go for this. They're trying to really get um, this kind of system up where it's sort of like we're we really don't feel like D&D feels cinematic or dynamic. We don't feel like the rules support those go big or go home moments because and also Daggerheart. Sorry, yeah, Daggerheart, MCDM, DC20. Um, a lot of them are not really. They're all kind of like looking at it, going like the dungeon master can go out of their way to do something, but for a lot of times, it if the dungeon master isn't pushing that boundary, isn't pushing that level, what ends up happening is that the game does not feel that. Um, I have my own opinions, like with like opportunity attacks, locking people out of moving, and punishing you for moving. So you kind of end up being in this game of like, and we sit there. Oh, you don't want to sit there? Use an action and don't get anything accomplished to be able to move away. It really does this thing of like bogging down what it means to have any concept of strategy in the game. It really doesn't allow you to make too many decisions, and then what you do, like if you want to do something, but if you want to do something that's a little bit different, you end up having to go out of your way to pick spells and feats that kind of negate the entirety of an opportunity attack until it doesn't because somebody else picked the sentinel feat, and now nothing matters. You're back to not being able to do anything. And it's not so much about the reactions and things like that, but it's the fact that it's just like everybody can do it. So then you go and people go, well, Pathfinder Second Edition takes care of that. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, they do. They do actually. Only one class can do it, so which means that only some monsters would be able to do it if they kind of have that ability, or maybe monsters don't do it at all, and you don't have to worry about that. So it's like now only one kind of player character does it, they can only do it on move actions. So then there's like a lot of stuff that you can kind of do in between. Great stuff. Love the idea there. It does mean that there's just like a very long chart um, of things that trigger opportunity attacks for the thing that cares about triggering opportunity attacks in Pathfinder. And it's nice that only like one player class maybe has to know about it. The dungeon master ends up having to know this whole chart as well. Um, it does help if like the actions, since everything is an action, and you just have the three actions. It does help that all you have to do is look that it has like a move. I think it's move or manipulate. I don't remember. But if it has one of those actions, then you go, I can take an opportunity to attack because you are busy doing a thing that is not combat oriented. I I kind of I grew up. I started D&D with second edition, and in second edition, you have this kind of like a round is a minute situation, and so when you roll to hit with an attack, you're not rolling to say, "Oh, hey, my this is the one attack I did in that minute." No, 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 no. What it is that out of all of the attacks that you did, oh, thank you, Coffee. Coffee Streambot for promoting my coffee page. Um, it means that out of all the attacks he did, this is the one that went through. So that's kind of like what I mean about it, where it's like we're not looking to detail every step um, all the time. We want to detail the steps that matter, but but those details we want to be in depth with. That's kind of like where I want to be. That's the abstract and the specifics of it. So, how is Anarchy Realms different from other RPGs? So, the whole point of a tabletop role playing game is to arbitrate a collective story so that friends can come together and explore it. To explore it. In that sense, Anarchy Realms is just like those games. Where it differs is how it tackles. Um, whoa, man, I'm getting way too many things. Cool, cool, cool. Excellent. Sorry, my toots were getting responded to, and I really um cool. Uh, um, so like I've been talking about how all these games are about kind of arbitrating narrative talks in combat. Um, that Anarchy Realms is like those games. So again, you don't necessarily need a specific system to play a TTRPG. Using a specific system helps you find people who want to play a certain way, and that helps. That's kind of the whole thing. So where we differs is how it tackles development of narrative, fights, and social situations in the game with mechanics. And again, my my goal was to go from the wargaming side of things, and I'll cover that in a bit, and kind of move it towards narrative style games. So there are two major types of games: combat focused games descended from the war games of old, and narrative focused story games that don't so much have combat as they have a Calvinball-esque set of rules to resolve the combat narrative. Anarchy Realms strives to merge those games into one thing while being LGBTQIA plus and BIPOC friendly. Um, I my family is diverse. I myself am white. I myself am bisexual and trans and all sorts of things, but I'm white. Um, my son, my son is mixed. Um, my nieces, my sisters, a lot of other family. um, is mixed, and I I live in that kind of like pained world of not necessarily being able to help because I'm poor. Um, but I do my best, and one of the things that I try to do with that is with how I communicate ideas and trying to communicate those ideas in a way that doesn't exclude people. Um, uh, and it and it's not just that like there's disabilities um, and different kinds of disabilities, different types of neurodivergencies and everything that I really try to focus on when I'm trying to do things. And I try to learn as much as I can. Uh, so, like for example, the actions that I'm doing, I'm planning to color code them, but I'm also planning to have them be patterned. I'm trying to figure out what would be a good pattern still to pair up with the different kinds of actions. So that way, even if you're colorblind, you can see the pattern and things like that. Hold on, let me alter my position here a bit because my legs are starting to hurt. Okay, so chapter one, the core game. This is available for free online if you want to read it, um, if you want to reference it, if you want to look at it, and then we're gonna go into kind of like the future information that isn't published yet that is still kind of like organized so that it makes better sense. Um, so, how to play Anarchy Realms? Anarchy Realms operates on different layers depending on the situation. This is done to help the game master and the players to keep things organized and easier to manage. So, these layers share words and ideas to keep concepts grouped together in your mind. But the goal of these is to arbitrate the results. Because of this, the gameplay occurs in the following layers, which is free play, zone based, turn based, and grid based. So, and I did the cardinal sin of not um, hyphenating all of them. So that sucks. I have to fix that. So free play. Free play means that players get to put their input at any time, giving room for someone else to finish their actions. And this covers broader gameplay modes such as overworld travel, downtime, and planning. Essentially, it doesn't matter who says something first. We're not necessarily resolving your stuff one at a time. I'm getting an idea of what you're doing, 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 and then we're going to go through and resolve them in a manner that makes the most sense. And then while leaving room of like, oh, they're doing this, I'm going to help them with that instead, or things like that. And I'm planning to look at having kind of like guidelines and ideas to help people figure out interesting ways to do overworld travel, downtime, and planning, and things like that. Zone based. So, zone based play means that you are focused on a particular area. This is kind of like a zoomed in version of free play, and this includes city or town travel, dungeon exploration, or special events. I did the video kind of got messed up because something kind of got stuck on top of the video, so you couldn't see what was happening. But I did a game when I was first developing social. I called it social combat, but when I was developing social interactions, um, and one of the things I was doing with zone based is that I had kind of like a picture of a house, and then I would just have like some people are in this room, some people are over here, some people are over here, and so transferring from one room to the other um, was like would trigger like an opportunity attack. So it didn't matter how much space you had. Like, I'm gonna be at the door. No, no, no. Yeah, if you're in the room, you're in the room. Um, and it treated it as being just like close to each other. And so a lot of the things that 2D6 style systems, narrative focus systems do is that they have close, near, and things like that. Um, and so anybody who was in a room, I was treating this close, and you would have a conversation, and essentially you were having the conversation in front of other people, and so your hit points was like how much confidence you still had remaining in front of everybody else based on what was happening. And if you ran out of these kind of like social hit points, you were like, I'm done. I'm too embarrassed to go on. I don't have a leg to stand on. Nobody's listening to me anymore, or nobody cares about what I have to say anymore. And you had to like, you ended up being knocked out. You couldn't get involved anywhere else unless somebody said, no, 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 hear him out. And then that would give you more social hit points. Um, I'm taking kind of like that combat system into Anarchy Realms. Uh, and so I'm kind of reverse engineering that I did on it to get it to work. But zone based is more on that kind of level. Then you have turn based, which yep. You have turn based, which is uh, turn based play means you are focused on timing. So now you're rolling initiative. Um, Turn based just means that the order of operations matters for the situation, such as people speaking over each other and the like. Um, Social events, theater of the mind, such as easy fights and the like, can take place at this level. So you can do um, zone turn based has is in a zone. So if you're running a zone based event where you're in like a house and people are running around the house, if you're doing turn based combat, then people are going from room to room, and you can be in a room and say, okay, you're in the living room. Oh, where's the other person? They're in the dining room. You can move dash to it. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna run out of here and go to the dining room. All right. That kind of like idea is what you're looking at if using fifth edition terminology to kind of like mitigate the concept. But it's like, okay, yeah, it'll take two move actions in Pathfinder 2 edition, or you need to be able to run far in another edition, kind of thing. But this is not. You're not really looking at a specific definition of like, oh, I have 25 feet of movement left, so I'm going to be move 20 feet into this room, and then I'm going to take a shot. I'm going to shout inside like, "You stink," and then move out and close, or this is an easy fight, so I'm going to run up, going to move 15 feet down the hallway, look down this door, shoot the zombie, and then move another 5 feet so that I'm closer to this hallway. That part doesn't matter. That's not what we're looking for in zone-based combat. We're not looking for these very specific things. Um, all that matters is, am I in a room? Yes, I can see it. It's hiding. Okay. You don't have to worry about like, do I have enough room? You're in the room. You can do it. Just communicate what you want to do. And that might not work for everybody. So we have grid based when you have to be much more detailed with um, with your strategies and tactics and planning. And so you don't have to get down to grid based to run combat, especially when if you're just running like theater of the mind. It's like, oh, and this creature pops out of the chest. Like, we all beat it down. Cool. We didn't need to put everybody's miniatures on the board for that. That wasn't what this was about. That's not where your head should be at. You know. Um, so it's we're just trying to see if the rot grub got on somebody's skin and dug into your flesh. It didn't. Great. That was the entirety of it. That was the entirety of the concept. Um, go ahead and remove your miniatures from the board. We didn't need a picture of that. You know, uh, you do need it. You do need it like that. Sure. Here you go. That's. I'm glad you feel better. Oh, you paid $60 for your. That's why you want to use it. Okay, I get it. But those are the four levels, right? Um, and free play is almost like you almost feel like you're the people sitting around a table during free play. Um, and then once you're specifically talking about a specific zone, like you're in a city, or things like that. The reason I say city and town travel is different is because you can just write down, um, you're in the shopping district, um, you're in the housing district, um, you're in downtown, you're by the gates, and you can have these kinds of different things. Or you can say, well, there's um, there's the tavern you go to and its surrounding areas. That's like that's a block of information, and then there you go. Oh, what's near the tavern? Oh, near the tavern um you actually have like a grocer. Um, they have like some housing just behind it. You know, you're near that part of like of that district. Um, and then there's like there's like a park. Oh, okay. You know, and you can do it like that when it comes to zone based instead of necessarily going deeper. Now, the nice thing about this way of thinking, by the way, is you can kind of take this anywhere. This here is pretty system agnostic. Now, I'm going to have special things for free play levels, zone based levels, turn based. And when it gets to that level, things are going to get much more specific and tread more towards how Anarchy Realms works. But you can just take this and run 5th edition Pathfinder 2e. As a matter of fact, Pathfinder has some of these. I know they do. But you can just take this as a way to run your games without having to um, get necessarily focused on having this system. Okay, so here we get to the core mechanic of Anarchy Realms, which is rolling dice, multiple at once, and hoping to get higher numbers. Oh my gosh, it's like every single other system out there. So when rolling dice, any dice you roll more than once, you take the higher of them and ignore the rest. So if you roll multiple base dice, which is the d20, you only take the highest d20. Um, when you roll um, multiple of the other ones, you take the others. So and that's just like as a general rule. Most of the time, when we're talking about advantage on a dice, things like that, we're talking about that. There's also I am also running the advantage disadvantage that is in the 5e SRD that is open for everybody. So that's it. Um, I apply that to all dice. Just saves me time. So when you receive a bonus on an attribute, skill, or circumstance die, you go up the chain on the dice rolling from no dice at all the way to a d12, and you take the highest bonus dice regardless of the type of die. Um, I'll, I'll explain that in a bit. So actually, I'll explain that now. So 0 means no dice. I have that right here in the middle. 0 means having no dice. 1 means a d4. 2 means a d6. 3 is a d8. 4 is a d10. 5 is a d12. that means that if you have um, an attribute that is a 3, your skills at 2, and then you have some circumstances on your side that gets you to a 3, that means you roll a d8 for your attribute, a d4 for your, sorry, a d6 for your skill, and another d8 for your circumstance. You roll all 3 of those, and you take the highest out of all 3. So there's a chance you roll a 1 and a 2 on the 2d8s, and then a 6 on the d6. You take the 6. Um, so that is the ASC part of it, of the core mechanic, and I'll get to that in a moment. Those are the conditionals, is what I call it. So you have base, you have your conditional, and then you have a flat level bonus. I'll get to that more when we get to the formula. When you receive a deficit on an attribute, skill, or circumstance die, you go down the chain from the die, from having no dice to a negative d12. You take the highest deficit die, regardless of the type of die. So for the most part, you're dealing with bonuses, um, and but every once in a while, like, oh, you have a lot of banes on you, a lot of conditions on you, your a lot of getting a lot of interactions. That's nice. And your things go down. Something is lowering your attributes. Your attributes go into negatives. If their skill is way higher than yours, your skill gets overridden by their skill, and your skill dice go down. And now that's taking away from your roll. So that's so those are all things that can affect which dice you roll. And then finally, your flat level bonus also gets reduced by 1 for every level above you a target is, up to double your flat base level bonus negative. Whew, that is a sentence, which is a maximum of negative 10. The reverse is also true for each level above the target you are to a maximum plus 10. I'll go in more into that in a bit. Um, but essentially, you have a flat level bonus, which means as you level up, you get a flat bonus to all your dice rolls. That's just showing that you've improved. Then, based on whether the thing you're fighting is lower level than you or higher level than you get to you either improve your flat level bonus by how much higher you are, or reduce your flat level bonus by how much lower you are. So let's say you have a flat level bonus of +2, and an enemy is 12 levels higher. That puts you at -12, so the +2 becomes a -10. Now it doesn't matter, once they're 12 levels higher than you, that you're just going to be at -10. And this is just a concrete way of having levels matter without having it go overboard. It's kind of like a weird, a weird and interesting in between from fifth edition to Pathfinder second edition. It maths the math a little bit harder, and there's optional rules to not run certain things so that you can simplify all of its core mechanic stuff down if you want, such as rolling no dice and just having it be straight up pluses and minuses to the roll, things like that. So the formula, though, I designed it this way because I've been enjoying rolling multiple dice, and it lets little dice goblins and dice dragons in your group to roll more dice. So the formula is your base die, which is the d20, plus the highest of the conditional die, which is the attribute die, skill die, or circumstance die. Those can be a d4, d6, d8, d10, or a d12 each. Excuse me. Plus your flat level bonus, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. which can improve to be a +10 or reduce to a -10. So that's base plus conditional plus the flat level bonus. And I have here, if it helps, think about it as basking in the fun, which is base, attribute, skill, circumstance, and then the fun. The fun is the flat level bonus. And then I cover a nice example here. For example, you are level 8 against a level 11 enemy. So they apply a -3 to your flat level bonus of +2 for your level, which puts you at -1 flat level bonus. And then you have Journeyman skill, uncommon weapons. They are wearing heavy armor that they know how to use. So you get a +2 skill and then a +1 circumstance, because a common weapon is a +1 circumstance, as opposed to a martial weapon, which is a +2 circumstance. And then they're wearing heavy armor, which is -3 circumstance. So you can see the +1 -3 becomes a -2 circumstance. The +2 -1 becomes a +1 skill. Hold on, I need to get water. I have been talking a lot. Hold on. Okay, a little better. Yeah. There we go. So you're making a melee attack. So you have blood +2 and style +3 as your attack attribute. You take the highest one, which is the +3 attribute, and add that in. They have applied the condition weakened 1 on you, so you have a -1 to your attribute roll. So that's a +2 for your attribute. You have Dazed Dumb, which is a +1 circumstance for each condition someone else has that doesn't affect an attribute the way Weaken does. If they have a negative in defense, that is treated as a positive for you, so that is a +1 circumstance. So you roll a d20 plus a d6, which is the +2 attribute, and d4, which is the +1 skill, minus a d4, which is the -1 circumstance, -1, which is the +2 flat, -3 above. So you roll a d20, a d6, and a d4. You get whichever is higher, and then you take a -d4 and a -1. And that is your attack roll against the enemy. Like, wow, that is a lot. Well, a lot of this information you already have, which makes it a little bit easier. So let's look at another example. Example 2, you are level 8 disarming a level 4 trap. So you apply a +4 to your flat level bonus of +2 for your level, so that's a +6 flat level bonus. You have expert +3 skill with disarming traps, but no tools, circumstance -2. And you are using your blood attribute, which is +3 attribute for this. Your ally is also helping with the lock, as they also have a disarming skill, so you get advantage on your base die. So you roll 2d20 plus 2d8, which is the 3 attribute, 3 skill, minus a d6, which is a circumstance, plus 6, which is your flat. So you roll 2d20, take the highest, 2d8, take the highest, minus the d6 plus 6. There you go. Now this isn't telling you what your target is. This isn't telling you that. The trap will say what its difficulty is. But this shows how good you are at disarming. The advantage and disadvantage. Advantage and disadvantage means you roll the die twice and take the highest or lowest of the two respectively. Advantage on a die roll applies to the base die by default, so unless it specifies a conditional die roll, it only applies to the base die roll. If you have advantage on a skill die, but the skill is at 0, then you roll 0 dice twice and take the highest 0. This also applies to disadvantage. Any die, including damage dice, can be given advantage or disadvantage depending on ability, skills, circumstances, or GM fiat. Though usually they explain why. So, base plus conditional plus flat level bonus. This is another reminder of what you're looking at. Just basking in the fun. You'll usually know your attribute, your skill, and circumstance, at least like from your equipment baselines. Attribute is only ever modified by conditions or boons that affect attributes, and you'll know if you're under that effect. All other conditions and boons apply to circumstance on a +1 -1 rate per condition or boon. So while different boons and conditions have other effects, just having one on you modifies your circumstance. If it helps avoid confusion, the GM can roll the deficit dice, which means that if you're in the example up here, the GM would roll the D6 that would be subtracted from your thing, or the D4. Um, so, what are the attributes? So, Anarchy Realms uses a 6 attribute system. These attributes help define your character. They are mind, body, soul, blood, heart, and bone. Each attribute has a set of skills it represents, such as your knowledge in arcana or your ability to lift things over your head. So, mind is representing your ability to critically think about subject matters and helps with problem solving, intellectual agility, memory, and recall. Gotta adjust again. Ooh, too close, too close. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Coffee Stream Bot. Um, body represents your physicality and how it leans towards being capable of doing things. It covers your dexterity, resilience, and vitality. Soul is your inner monologue. It represents your peace with the world, your studies, and your history. It is etched with your past. Blood is your passion and drive. It is the inner fire of your creativity. Um, Without this attribute, it is difficult to move you to do things. Um, your heart is your emotional intelligence. It's what helps you manage your own emotions and the emotions of others. And it's where your compassion and authenticity come from. And bone is your aesthetic reasoning. So it is full of symbolism about who you are. It also affects your appearance and how others perceive you. Where something else might hold your truth, this is where it's expressed. So, and there's no one-to-one on any of these with uh, D&D and Pathfinder, because they're also another 6 attribute system. Hold on, need more water. Oof, ridiculous amount of talking here. Excuse me. Okay, so body, for example, is strength, dexterity, and um, constitution, or aspects of them, and blood is aspects of um, charisma um, and dexterity. Mind is aspects of intelligence and dexterity. Soul is wisdom and constitution, actually. And heart, oh sorry, soul is wisdom and charisma. Heart is heart is wisdom and constitution, and then bone is charisma and and what was it? Bone is the one that's the most closely just being charisma, to be honest. Um, but there's a lot of like wisdom and constitution, intelligence and constitution, where it's sort of like it's your resilience to the things and things like that. or it's like this aspect of charisma plus this aspect of intelligence, um, or dexterity and things like that. So those are the attributes. So then we have their skills. Skills are part of a list of competencies the player character has. Include everything from what armor you can wear to your ability to sing, and the amount of training affects the final result of a skill check. The skills you have increase the die chain towards you, and skills the opposition has increases the die chain towards them. Think of a chain as a number line going from -5 to +5. So untrained puts you at a -1, known puts you at 0, trained at +1, expert at +2, master at +3, grandmaster at +4, and legendary at +5. And you also have a flat level bonus to your skills based on level, regardless of training. Um, so if you're untrained in the skill, go -1 down a skill chain to a -D4, and you can be guided to use the skill, but you don't know the skill yourself. So someone else can put armor on you, for example, and then you can have the armor on, but you don't know how to put the armor on yourself. Once you know how to put the armor on yourself, or it's known, you don't necessarily have a skill bonus. You just meet the minimum requirements to use the skill without somebody else doing it for you or helping you with it. Trained, you go +1. Journeyman is +2, which is the D6. Expert is +3, and it means that now once you're at +3, it means that it stands out. People can kind of go, "Whoa, you know what you're doing." Master, um, is that like it astounds people. People are like, "Whoa, did you see that person do that?" And then legendary is like, you can do this thing so easily that it's an insane kind of thing. People have difficulty believing you just did that. Flat level bonus. Um, your level grants you a flat level bonus to all skills you attempt, regardless of your competency with it. As a reflection of general experience, you can use hero points to add up to double your current flat bonus to a roll. So levels 1 through 4 is a +1, 5 through 8 is a +2, 9 through 12 is a +3, 13 through 16 is a +4, and 17 through 20 is a +5. When something refers to your flat bonus, for example, failing by double your flat bonus, it means taking this base number, doubling it to see what the difference is, and not the modified flat bonus you get while actually taking the roll. So no matter what, when we say fail by double, if so at earlier levels when you fail by double, I think people with from Pathfinder 2 know, like, oh, you fail by 10, it becomes a crit miss on something. This is very similar concept, but it's something that at earlier levels it's easier to crit miss. It's easier to just like not have it do anything whatsoever, um, and it becomes an harder to do when you got to go like, oh, I got to roll 10 under now. But early on, you're like, oh, I went 2 under. Um, I crit missed. It just um, it shows a way that you're improving, that your failures are not as spectacular as you level up. But do this. Um, we set that number down before we look at um, the modifications from level, because the modification from level can put you at negative, or it can put you like way above positive. Um, so before we do that, your own actual skill decides what it takes for you to crit miss. Some things give you a flat bonus to your rolls. Flat bonuses stack with the flat level bonus and have a maximum of +10 in total. So if you're at +5, it takes less things can affect your flat level bonus to get to it takes less for you to be improved to improve yourself to a maximum capacity of 10. So um, you can kind of like focus your bonuses and other things is the idea there. And then circumstances are created by having non-attribute altering boons and conditions. And they also happen from positioning in combat, such as surrounding an enemy, or from certain states like attacking stealth, being invisible, or being prone. You're also affected by the equipment you use, and if you're using the proper tools or wearing armor. If something benefits you, you gain a circumstance bonus. If something hinders you, you lose it. Equipment is straightforward in how it affects your actions. So, common weapons are +1, martial weapons are +2, light armor is +1, medium armor is +2, heavy armor is +3, and having the proper tool is a +2 versus not is a -2. So having a similar-ish tool would get you in that +1 -1 range kind of thing. And then you have your hero points, which is sometimes you fail. That's okay because you fail, you learn from it, granting you a hero point. If you fail a skill roll and it is by less than double your flat bonus, you gain a hero point, which you can spend right away to adjust your failure to a success. You can spend hero points to adjust the final roll result by up to your flat skill bonus. Um, this allows you to get hero moments where success matters most. Hero points are also used as a resource for stunts and other abilities. So there's certain things that you do that you need to have a hero point to be able to do it. Um, and I don't have the actual numbers written down here. That kind of gets handled somewhere else, but you usually get a hero point at a rate of +2, and you can get it up to um, your flat bonus. So if we go back up here to your flat bonus, if you have a flat bonus of 4, you can spend 2 hero points, get a +4. If your flat bonus is a +3, if you spend 1 hero point, you're at +2. If you spend 2, you're at +4, but you only get the +3. You don't get the +4. So that's all that meant. And then you have the narrative of the world, which is the campaign is based on the concept of the players being part of an organization called the Problem Solvers. They're based out of localized centers called Solver Sanctuaries. Think of it like an adventurers guild, but with a narrower focus. Their job, aside from general helping of things people can't do on their own or from other systems, they are not the town guard or the fire brigade, but might be tasked with helping those groups. Is going into labyrinths and destroying the hearts inside, allowing the labyrinths to collapse. They have to escape the labyrinth before it does so. Um, this has been kind of like my thing for a long time, and then it's just been hilarious seeing like how many other anime and game systems and narrative focuses do the same thing. Um, it just it allowed. I originally did this a long time ago to kind of like have a reason to have kind of like these dungeon crawly portions of the game that my players wanted. Um, but it's not. But it doesn't have to be a dungeon crawl. So there's different kinds of labyrinths you can do, and I'd be going kind of into that more into the design. Where's my water? Oh, here it is. Whew, throat is getting knocked out. Oh, excuse me. Wow, 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 wow. All right, and then you have the scenarios: martial combat versus social events, and social events focuses action skills and abilities can be used in a variety of ways. Some things will list how you can apply it to different situations, but with the caveat that not all given applications are listed. This means that if it makes sense for fire to burn something, you can have it burn something. Unless a spell or ability specifically restricts how something happens, you can try using it, some or part of it, in different situations. And then martial combat often goes down to grid based, while social events usually happen in turn based zones. So that's just another thing with the combat social events um, that I started writing. I haven't quite finished that thought process there yet, and that might move. But essentially, this part of it is essentially saying that, unlike fifth edition that says unless a spell specifically says it does something that doesn't do it, this is saying, hey, a lot of these things are very broad. Go ahead and use your logic on things. You can use, and I'll have like we'll have like recommended logic scenarios on things like fire burns, um, and things like that, to kind of go over. So I'm more of a I might restrict something specifically as opposed to um, allow something specifically. So that is chapter one so far, and pretty much it just covers how to roll the dice and some of the wording that we use on rolling the dice. And chapter two is going to be building the characters, and to be able to do that, um, to do that, I started going through online to and just kind of talking to different TTRPG communities online, because the term species for me was kind of like affecting me in a certain way, and I wasn't sure on it. Um, I had like, oh well, I'm getting even more responses. Um, and so one of the things I was talking about was um, what what it means for um, the idea of species, of heritage, legacy, things like that, in a game. And because, like, for me, race has the whole racism thing tied to it. Um, and when you started getting scientific and clinical about things, you realize that we're we're all the same species as humans, right? And more specifically, most of us are the same subspecies, unless you're a Neanderthal. But that starts getting into this whole white supremacy conversation situation because of how they use terminology. And there's a whole history there with that, where there's kind of like this moving goalpost of being okay to talk about things that white supremacy keeps dragging um, further and further away from regular conversations. Um, and so I very much was struggling with that, because no matter what you put down, you know, um, and you'll see historical use, racist use of these different words in different ways. Like uh, uh, in British English, it's like, oh, they're not the same lineage as us, and America has, well, they're a different race, um, and um, and things like that, and so I think Um, when enough people were talked to and what the definitions mean, I think species ended up being the thing that got lined in. Pathfinder 2E got it into ancestry and heritage. Um, but then, uh, sorry, legs again. Um, but it's just been kind of like this whole kind of like stepping stone of different things. And I'm kind of like at a point where between like lineage background, ancestry, heritage, species and culture, things like that. Um, so the one of the people that have been like talking to me about it online, where they're like, "There's no really neutral terms about it," and I'm like, I agree with. Like, you can't really, um, you really have like this whole ick factor with different wordings and stuff, and I had that with species for some reason, where it's like, uh, I really, I don't view species as being interactive. You know, you don't really like you can socially interact with different species, but I never saw it as like, you know, you can have kids with a situation. So when you're looking at like elves and humans and orcs and dwarves, it suddenly calling them species for a moment felt like I would be losing um, a lot of things. Like I would be losing what it means to have those kind of that kind of like mixture of people, but um, Neanderthal and our current Homo sapien, um, a lot of us are mixed. I'm like 23% Neanderthal or something like that in DNA, and it's not. There's a good chance that it's not that um, subspecies of people is gone necessarily, but they're kind of like got folded in with other subspecies and became, um, we're our own kind of subspecies of human of of Homo sapien because of it, and so I was like, well, yeah, and it's not just humans. There's somebody made a good point where they went through and said like, um, it's that multiple other things can have um, kids together, um, that the hybrids exist between like cats and citrus fruit and wolf coyote hybrids that um, are able to like have kids, et cetera, and so I I really kind of like was able to go, okay, I'm able to kind of give into species a little bit because of it, so I put a poll up. It's going to be up for the next few days. Getting some early results and some great responses already to it. Um, Essentially, going like, which pair of like things like feel the least amount of ick, and um, like a lot of people keep saying like, it's not that they sound bad necessarily as far as the list that I gave. It's just that they have connotations, right? And that's the thing. Like before I really had some other ideas about species expressed to me, I had connotations to it, right? And so I have Malin at Dice Camp saying none of them sound bad. Lineage sounds like it might refer to family. Um, and that works if you have something like Divine Right of Kings or the same thing with Ancestry. Species sounds like you want to be really specific about biological species, and Heritage sounds like you get a boon. Um, and then again, the moment I see these in a book, if there's a different description, I'll just read it. So none seem like a problem. I'm like, okay, cool. Um, Somebody else said that despite their professed and obvious love for Pathfinder 2e, they're siding with lineage and background. And if you're only having two, Pathfinder uses ancestry and heritage with background as an additional thing everyone has. But if you're just using two, background is a lot more flexible, and lineage sounds rad as hell. Okay. Um, and then and that was from Cocaine Albert. Thank you, Cocaine Albert, for that. And then GCVSA, like I'm honestly fine with any of them, including race and ethnicity. Although I'm sure there are others who find these terms off-putting. Species seems a bit clinical, but doesn't quite exactly roll off the tongue. But that's, I think, the only term that makes me balk a little, even though it's an accurate descriptor for some circumstances. But subspecies and cultivar aren't ideal either. And also, they also say that there's no neutral, no, that there's ultimately no neutral terms, and all of these associated words have cultural, scientific, political, and religious connotations. All taxonomic terms are meant to divide. The question should be, for what purpose? Excellent, excellent point. To which Malin also says, sub race and sub X have arbitrary beef with that kind of idea. It's just a personal taste thing, but it sounds like Victorian thinking. And if you go to my post on Mastodon, their response links to um, a post from last year that kind of goes into it, um, and especially talking about like the sub races. And I agree. It's like when you start dealing with labeling people as subspecies of it, it sounds wrong because the term sub means below. Um, Even though it's an accurate scientific term, it has um, a kind of like um, just a basic English connotation attached to it that um, I'm not super comfortable with myself. So the help and the conversations I had with it were great, super helpful, um, and it will definitely influence the decisions I make when it comes to writing out what how the different groups of people are divided in the world. Because if let's look at the idea of humans, elves, and dwarves being the same species, right? And by the definition of that species, the most aggregate group have long lifespans. Most aggregate group might be, you know, the whole idea of elves very complicated because elf and gnome historically were very similar creatures, and um, the terminology kind of like got more specific and things divided later. And then you had Tolkien making elves be tall, where that was not. Where elf was like much more like a sprite or a fairy before. But if we look at it now, um, we have dwarves um, applying to long-lived people who are on average short, hairy, and um, tend to live in mountains and hills. And then, but that's culture and location, right? So we can have forest dwarves. So let's get that out of the way. Let's get that out of the way. Let's get that location out of the way. So we have, uh, on average, short and hairy across the field, and then elves have pointy ears and less hairy. So the taller you are, the less hair you have. There we go. And then you have humans who, for whatever reason, are in between those two heights and in between those two levels of hairiness, but they have like a zero lifespan by comparison. So, so again, we as people, because we are humans, we are centering ourselves in that conversation of humanity in this world, and so what does that mean? And to me personally, to me, I am at a point where I don't want to include humans in my game. There's no humans. It's just, when I say human, I mean the people that live there, and that's going to be the elves and dwarves. That's that's kind of the point where I'm at right now. Because it, and here's the thing though, based on the numbers that I have seen, um, of that they have published in the D&D has published, that means that I would be getting rid of 90% or 70% of the D&D player base that would just not be interested in my game at all. If I said there's no humans in it, I don't know. Okay, so I've been going on. How long have I been streaming for? Hour and a half. Yeah, I've been streaming for an hour and a half, but I've been talking nonstop, a lot more at least than I usually do, and my throat is killing me. I went over the chapter one of Anarchy Realms, or at least chapter one as far as I have it now, which is more of an overview chapter. A lot of things will just be linked out from there, and expanded on in the future. Um, we talk kind of like where my design process is stuck right now, which is labeling. It's just labeling, and it's not. It's funny because it's not a huge complexity, right? The labeling, but all labeling and all labeling inherently divides. So the question is, why are you dividing? Why am I dividing? And I'm dividing because I'm acknowledging that there's differences, but I want to divide in a way that does not center the perspective from kind of like our own real world human point of view. So, regardless of what the labeling is, my next step is going to be to kind of like have world building kind of information, which is excuse me, which is a lot more of a generic specific um, thing of like what different groups of people are in the game, where they come from, what they did before, and kind of have that labeling kind of covered. Um, Unlabeled labeling. Yeah, unlabeled labeling, and we'll go from there, and we'll see what happens. Um, yeah. Whew, okay, I really do need to take a longer break. I need to wrap things up. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Um, as you can see, oh look, this is what it's supposed to look like when I do my ending screen. You guys haven't seen it in a while because of this. Support me on Coffee for more 5e compatible content. Um, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit here and listen. Um, Take care. Have a wonderful time. Um, and don't forget, anarchyrealms.com is available for free. Um, and I mean that free the way Linux is free. I really do. Okay? Take care. See you all later. Bye.